Amel blows up the carriage and sends a dark spell into the sky to transform into a dragon. It begins spamming fireballs at them while Alize lays distraught behind a rock, until Setsu calls her over to join the battle. The dragon charges at them, but the clumsy bastard trips, allowing Levia to empower Setsu's Buster Blade with water magic so he can launch Ngitsuga Tensho to knock down the lizard, leaving Alize to finish it off with an improv brain surgery. After defeating the monster, Setsu decides to leave his student to finish her mission, and takes his boat until they arrive at the Beastmen continent. Meanwhile, Alize returns to look for the villagers but finds Amel waiting for her with many monsters that she made from the missing people. She reveals that she is the one who makes the giant armors to start the wars between the continents, then proclaims that her true identity is Meluar, the monster master and one of Toma's top hitters. We head over to the Beastmen continent where we find Shiraneko receiving many donations from all the furries around her so she can take care of her sick sister. She arrives at her home and goes in to greet her sibling who seems to have come down with a case of the Rona. Shiraneko gives the cat girl the last of her medicine and embraces her sister in a hug while telling her that everything will be alright. Our little furry goes to the inn to get more medicine and thanks the bad bee at the counter for finding it for her. But she takes the chance to take advantage of Shiraneko by giving her a quest to make Setsu past tense, with the promise that after it's completed she will be rich enough to take care of her sister forever. Our party conveniently arrives at the inn and walks over to the host to ask for some rooms, while Shiraneko takes the chance to escape but gets a good look at her target before she leaves to plan her assassination. Shiraneko heads home to have dinner with her sister but finds that she's too sick to eat even after she drank all the medicine. Our furry tells her to get some rest while she goes to do the dishes, but her sister just stares while wearing a totally not cursed necklace. In the night, the host opens the inn to Shiraneko and tells her that our party has fallen asleep, but before she enters, our little furry thanks her for everything that she's done to take care of both her and her sister since they were orphans. And she tells Shiraneko to complete the mission to make her sister proud before giving her the key to our party's room. She peeps inside to see that everyone is in sleep mode and uses Fury Swipe but finds that they were illusions. Setsu decides to give the furry a tummy tuck that launches her outside the building and goes down to continue the battle with the intruder. Shiraneko puts on her furry claws and jumps up into the sky to launch a fireball, but Setsu easily dispels it and goes over to hand out punishment for her careless use of magic. The Shiraneko has fainted, but Sesta realizes that curse magic was used on our little furry and suspects it came from the host of the inn. Shiraneko awakens in her room and sees Setsu by her side, so she prepares to attack, but her sister stops her and explains that they brought her back after she fell unconscious. Setsu reveals that she doesn't have an illness and goes over to her bed to use light magic on the necklace to show that a powerful curse is affecting her. Shiraneko begs our MC to save her sister, so he tells the furry to lie down on the bed and remain as still as possible. He calls forth Glutton to manifest into this world as a god-eater sword. The Gok blade begins sucking away all the curse that have been plaguing the furry, but a kunai suddenly comes in that's blocked by Shiraneko before it can hit Setsu. The host reveals that she's working for Toma, but Setsu can't move while Glutton is devouring the curse. She suddenly gets squirted outside the house as Levia steps up to remind everyone why she's the best girl. The host uses Shadow Clone Jutsu to surround our waifu and attack her from all sides, but they get penetrated by her fluids, which causes all the clones to disperse. Then Levia uses her Fap arm to call upon the sea to launch a water gun straight into her baby maker to bring an end to the fight. Shiraneko comes over and asks why she would do this to them, but the host scolds her for being worthless even though she also failed the mission. Levia decides to give her an invitation to heaven, but the host says that Toma's goal is to become a god and destroy everything in this world before flashbanging our party so she can escape with her life. Setsu comes out to see what happened with Shiraneko's sister running close behind. They begin to embrace and show each other some furry love while Setsu realizes that Toma has become more dangerous than ever and must be stopped once and for all. The next day, our party takes a boat to go deeper into the Beastmen continent, but Setsu spots Shiraneko and her sister waiting for them at the dock. They ask to join our party to fight against Toma and get revenge on the host, so Setsu allows them to accompany him on his journey to the capital of the furry continent. Our party arrives at the gate of the kingdom, but the guards refuses to let them in without permission from their king. Roa suddenly does a leap of faith and lands on the newly made body pillows with perfect form. The king's daughter reveals that she smelt Setsu coming towards them and embraces her friend while trying a sneak attack, but our MC gently introduces her to the floor. She says it was a test because they haven't fought in a long time, before taking his arm to walk with him towards the king's throne room while he makes her happy with his fingers. The king bursts through the door to meet Setsu and he greets his friend in a very normal way. They go inside the throne room where Setsu reveals that Toma is alive and he's trying to destroy the world. The king stands to fight, but they stop him because he needs to remain here in case Toma tries to attack his continent as well. Roa decides to join his party instead, but someone comes in the room to stop the king from helping our hero. The commander of the furry army and Roa's self-proclaimed fiancé questions if Setsu can be trusted because he was missing for 5 years and foolishly challenges the strongest person alive to a duel. Seeing his chance, the king declares that the winner will also marry his daughter, so Ruga plans the fight for tomorrow and walks away unaware that his ass-beating status is now on pending. In the night, Roa goes to Ruga and warns that Setsu is far stronger than him, but he reveals that he already knew and still thinks he has a chance because an Eastern mage gave him a rune that converts his will into strength, which definitely doesn't have an effect on his mental health. The next day, the furries get ready for the battle between Ruga and Setsu. The king signals the battle to begin and Ruga starts off by charging at our hero, but he dodges all of the incoming attacks. So Ruga uses Iron Reaver Soul Stealer, but Setsu uses full counter to deflect the attack and lightly damages his opponent. Ruga decides it's time to go into his super furry form, but Setsu easily grabs the animal by the tail and introduces him to the floor. Roa begins cheering on Setsu for winning and fearing that his girl is about to be taken. Ruga begins using the power of the magic rune. The giant furry begins hearing Toma's voice in his head, who begins convincing him to give in to despair and transforms into Majin Ruga. He blows off Setsu against the wall and puts our hero on his knees, but the best girl comes in clutch to toss him his buster sword. Ruga uses tackle to close the distance, so Setsu disarms the monster, but it instantly regenerates and launches a counterattack. Roa carelessly runs into the battle and has to get saved by our hero. The cat girl says that she wants to help him fight, so Setsu tells her to keep Majin Ruga busy while he's defenseless. Our MC calls forth Glutton, but a mist suddenly comes over the battlefield which blows Ruga's mind as Toma's projection begins manifesting. He begins to act very friendly with Setsu and says that he's glad to see him again. Roa asks what he did with Ruga, which makes the edgelord mad because she interrupted their conversation, but Setsu steps up to defend her. Toma says that he's always protecting other people even though he promised to be there for him, and reveals that he plans to destroy everything in this world until only both of them remain to live happily with each other as gods. Setsu scolds him for being a yandere and says that he will not sit still while innocent people are endangered. But Toma admits that the humans have already started attacking the demon continent and questions if he can get there in time to protect them as he fades away from their sight and leaves Ruga's loot box to fall to the floor at the feet of the woman he loved the most. The king apologizes for allowing the duel to take place, but Setsu tells him that it's not his fault and he must leave to go to the demonic continent. So the king tells him that he will mobilize his army and follow him there as fast as possible. 10 years ago, Setsu along with Toma was abducted into this world and is told by the king that they need their help to save the nation. But Setsu scolds them for kidnapping him from his normal life and forcing them to fix all their problems. Our hero begins training for his upcoming battles while Toma sits and admires him for remaining calm in this new world, but Setsu points out that they have to get strong to survive, so there is no point in complaining about it. They go inside the castle where Setsu reveals that he wants to stop all the wars in this land so there can be peace, but Toma says that he is too weak to help him achieve his goals. Our hero goes over and tells Toma that since they are from the same world, he promises to protect him like a brother forever. Our MC begins to pack his bag to go on his journey and leaves Toma behind in the protection of the kingdom, but he promises Setsu that he will train to be strong enough to help stop all the wars in this world. Setsu walks outside the kingdom to depart with his party while Toma is left alone to take care of the human continent by himself. After he got stronger, the king recognized him as the Silver Hero and gives Toma a sword as a reward for his hard work. Then he leaves the throne room with his soldiers while thinking that he's one step closer to completing the promise he made to Setsu. On the battlefield, we find the human army charging at a castle to break down its doors so Toma can lead his soldiers inside and divides any enemy that's unfortunate enough to enter his path. He finds himself in a temple with a headless statue at the end and hears some defenseless citizens surrendering to him, but Toma casually goes over and commits a war crime. He begins to leave the temple, but the statue starts talking to him and reveals that if he takes the necklace she will make his dreams come true, so the little psychopath gives into its temptation and take the cursed object as his own. We find Toma awakening on a battlefield as he begins to explore the area and finds some of his soldiers' bodies scattered on the floor. He continues looking for more enemies to defeat, but a soldier suddenly runs over to him to report that the war has ended because the leaders have begun to negotiate peace. A carriage rides by and Toma sees Setsu inside talking with all the leaders while he is left alone in the streets. Later on, all the leaders signs a peace treaty to stop fighting among each other, and they unveil a plaque to symbolize the peace that Setsu have brought to this world. In the night, Setsu admires the happiness of everyone below, but Toma suddenly comes over and congratulates our hero for achieving his goal. Setsu praises him for all that he managed to accomplish, but before he can respond, Elka calls to our MC to attend a party in his honor. He tells Toma that he has to leave, but he stops Setsu and says that in the temple he wished that they could go home together and he was given a sword that can take them back. Setsu says that he doesn't want to leave because the war is now over and they can enjoy life in this world. Toma begins freaking out, and in this moment of weakness the sword starts to pull him further into despair. Setsu begins to leave him behind as he reaches out an arm for help while remembering the promise he made to protect him. Our hero turns around to see Toma under the sword genjutsu, and he decides to destroy everything in this world so Setsu will be forced to stay by his side and pay attention to him. The fight starts off with Setsu deflecting Toma's first attack, but he charges forward to continue the battle against his best friend. Setsu closes the distance but gets damaged before he brings his sword down to critically injure Toma and bring the battle to an end. Inside the temple, Toma finds himself heavily injured and leans against a pillar to rest. He throws away the cursed item and accepts that this is where he'll fall, but the crystal suddenly begins to glow and shows him a vision. We see a mysterious man going towards a table where they begin penetrating him with many long objects. Then gives another patient a shocking surprise in an attempt to raise his magic levels, while the other doctors relentlessly experiment on all their captives until they begin to approach the point of a mental breakdown. Toma realizes that they're also in despair like him and causes an earthquake at the Dungeon of Horrors to force the doctors to run away while leaving the captives behind. They awaken from the rubble to find Toma in his new drip announcing that they're now free and invites them to join him in destroying the world that gave them nothing but sadness. In the present time, we find Toma along with all his generals standing on a cliff watching the beginning of the war that will bring this world to an end. On the ships we see the humans getting ready to invade the demon continent. But our original party plans on going after Toma and decides to hold him off until Setsu arrives to return peace to their lands. The soldiers depart on boats so they can get to the beach to storm the shores of the continent, but the demon rains down hell upon them to cause a lot of casualties. The human mages begins firing back to break down the demon's defenses to allow the soldiers a path inside so the armies can begin to fight in close combat. Glaine leads our party into battle and they begin slaughtering all the demons that stand in their path while the students disperse for their first battle. However, one remained behind and nearly becomes a hashtag, but Yuhi came in clutch to save her life. The demons begin retreating from the might of the human army, but Yuhi notices that her classmates are about to send a demon to the Shadow Realm and stops him from smoking the defenseless soldier. Everyone begins hearing Melur's voice in their head as summoning circles begin appearing in the sky to spawn many giant suits of armors, along with a brainwashed Alizi who starts to send all the soldiers around her to meet Jesus. Melur shows herself on the battlefield and our party realizes that Alizi is now under her control. They question what happened to her, so Melur explains that she turned her into a worker without pay and invites them to join her. She does an emo girl to spread her fluids on the battlefield and use her magic to transform the liquids into monsters that can fight for her. The Pokemon begins attacking our party, but Elka performs brain surgery to put down the Arbok while Glaine uses Gitsuga Tenshos to finish off the Darmanitan. Melur commands her knights to attack him, but Thea comes in clutch to take out all her soldiers along with the Garchomp in the sky. They see that Yuhi has finished her battle and joins them to face off against Toma's general, but the villain sends Alizi to fight against them. So Glaine goes in and easily knocks her out to give Elka the chance to disarm Melur and attack her life points directly to banish the trainer into the Shadow Realm. Melure stands once more and begins walking towards our party to use the last of her strength to bring forth her most powerful chimera so she can jump on his head and fuse with her creation. The abomination uses hyper beam on our party, but the mages use the last of their strength to stop the blast. She realizes that they're all on low health and decides to spam the attack, but before she can defeat them they notice that Alize penetrated her from behind, and starts embracing her former sister in a hug as she leaves her mortal vessel to descend to a special place in hell. After the battle, they begin to treat all of the MVP's wounds, but they hear something in the distance as another one of Toma's generals arrives on the battlefield. Yuhi steps up to do a 1v1 with him, but everyone begins protesting until she points out that she's the only one left who can fight. Everyone suddenly senses an immense magical power as our hero arrives on the continent to bring an end to this war. Yuhi goes over and embraces her friend in a hug until he tells her to calm down. She reveals that she was training with Elka and learned the legendary position so he can mount her at any time, but he kindly declines the offer. Setsu sends Yuhi away and gets ready to fight against Toma's general, so he removes his cloak to get access to the nudity skill tree. The fight begins with Setsu charging forward and clashes blades with him relentlessly, but when he backs away the villain takes the chance to trap him in shadow possession jutsu. He tries to finish off our hero, but Setsu fights back to his surprise and asks him to call Toma to fight him instead. The Shadow Man decides to use his limit break to job change into a Dark Knight and continues the battle with our MC. Setsu uses a wall jump to perform an air takedown, but it's stopped by the armor and the Knight's fists him onto the floor. Our hero gets back up and drastically increase all his stats so he can launch a Getsuga Tensho that's strong enough to break apart the villain's armor. Setsu warns him that if he moves he will not survive, but Toma's general does not care because his goal is to destroy this world of despair or pass away while trying. He begins charging at Setsu, which forces our hero to stop him, but in his last moments he thanks Setsu for giving him a good fight as he goes into a forever sleep mode. We go over to another battlefield where the host is bullying the regular soldiers until the furry sisters arrives to fight against her. Shiraneko questions why she became evil, but the host tells them it was an act and attempts to make them a hashtag. She charges at the sisters to knock them away, but they begin to surround the furry ninja. She goes on to attack both of them to try and escape their trap, but Shiraneko dropkicks the host to allow her sister to perform an immediate tummy tuck on the villain. The sisters think that the fight is over until tentacles suddenly come to trap one of them while the other gets knocked away, but since it's PG it doesn't go any further than that. The host uses her limit break to increase the power of her FAP arms and begins attacking our little furry to deliver a giant fisting to her. She begins scolding them for relying on each other to survive, but Shiraneko awakens and tells her that trusting her sister is the best thing she can do. The host attempts to fist her again, but Shiraneko runs away from them and jumps to her sibling to perform the fusion dance and merge their powers together. The sisters uses Flash Step to get behind the host, so she begins freaking out and reveals all the FAP arms she has to launch an all-out attack against them. But they create a tornado to deflect all the blows and uses their speed to destroy all her arms instantaneously. The host stands up one last time while remembering the sisters she lost and charges at the fusion, so they delivers one more fisting to bring an end to this battle. And the host tells the sisters that they are truly close as her body becomes food for the worms. On another battlefield, we find many soldiers trying to penetrate a mysterious man, but he easily blows them off. The villain takes off his cloak to reveal that he's Toma's zestiest general before testing if the man has a foot fetish. The colorful fellow explains that he is very hard and invites them to push their swords into his body, so Roa decides to take him up on his offer and commits a hate crime upon the general. She tells the soldiers that she will take him on, and Zesty Saitama compliments her on her strength but asks if she can do more and admits that scientists experimented on him over many years to turn him into a cyborg until Toma came to save him. Roa scolds him for praising the man who wants to destroy the world, but he explains that the strong can do whatever they want with the weak, like when they smoked Ruga. The furry goes and kicks the zesty robot, but she managed to only do damage to herself and decides to focus all her power into her arms to fight him. But colorful Ikuku begins emitting dust and reveals that he can control all the cells in his body, which he uses to transform into his favorite object. The balls fly up into the air and comes down to pound our furry friend until she can no longer move. The booty warrior thinks that he has ended the fight, but Roa stands up once more to protect the pride of her people by using all the powers she can summon from her body to become an ascended furry so she can charge through all of the robo-balls and give him a well-deserved fisting. Mr. Zesty uses armament hockey to become harder, but Roa pushes him to the floor and begins pounding him until she bursts his protection. Seeing that he's in danger, the booty bandit penetrates our little furry, but she uses the rage to break the spikes apart and turns Toma's last general into a donut. She announces that a beastman's pride is the strongest before falling into sleep mode. However, the pride bot goes over to Roa and uses the last of his strength to heal her wounds. She asks why he did it, and he admitted that she impressed him as his body begins to fail. Our furry questions why he joined Toma, so he tells her the simple truth that he wanted to smash and leaves her with the advice to live on while carrying the pride of the beast men with her. Toma realizes that all his generals have gone to the Shadow Realm and begins emitting black force energy to signal Setsu to his location. The best girl arrives inside Deza's room and she tells Levia that all of the generals' magic powers have disappeared, so the war is now in their favor. Toma walks in to interrupt them after leaving a trail of loot boxes in his path and prepares to give both of them an invitation to heaven. Setsu arrives at the castle and finds his harem in grave danger. The battle begins with Setsu clashing with the edgelord, but both of them gets blown away, so Toma summons a spear to attack, but our MC easily deflects it and blows apart the roof. Setsu tells him to fight seriously, so he begins to spam projectiles that track their opponent, and Setsu uses Getsuga Tensho to destroy them, but Toma comes from behind to land a surprise attack that manages to injure our hero. They continue the fight and Toma gets disarmed, but Setsu drops his hole maker as well so he can give the villain a well-deserved fisting, but Toma uses a Grand Race Zero to stop his ass beating. Toma decides to go all out and channels the power of America to turn his sword into a giant pure and tries to free Setsu's soul with a blast, but luckily he has the aim of a stormtrooper. Setsu charges at him to deliver a tummy tuck that takes him far away from his harem, and they continue the fight in the skies. Toma turns the pure into a Gatling, then begins letting his choppa sing, but Setsu survives by using a force field and decides it's time to summon the Gok Gok blade and uses its power to suck in all the pews. He begins to power up while wielding the two blades and launches a Getsuga Jujusho at the villain, but it did little to no damage to him. All of our party members arrive inside the castle and Setsu points out that all his friends smoke Toma's friends, so he should give up. He begins to remember all the times our MC abandoned him to spend time with them, to fall further into despair, and channels all his hatred into himself, then limit breaks to gain a massive power-up. Toma declares that he will destroy the world to stop despair from spreading and begins blasting Setsu relentlessly with giant lasers, but he still has the aim of a stormtrooper. The villain begins to aim his weapons at our party, so Setsu cannot dodge and fires a blast that our hero uses the Gok Gok sword to suck up. Setsu begins raining down Getsuga Tenshos upon Toma until his shield breaks and goes in to land the final blow to bring an end to his life. But in his last moments, Toma remembers all the time he spent with Setsu in this world along with the despair he felt and recovers so he can continue fighting. Setsu wishes he aimed for the head as Toma prepares his attack and fires at our hero to blast him out of the sky to put him in critical condition. Toma goes over to his crush and begins to climax from the joy he feels from finally beating him, but our hero rises once more to tell Toma that he will never win. He casts a shield around Toma that cuts him off from his limit break and takes the chance to use his Earth Eater technique to transform the ground into a munch that eats out his enemy. Toma freaks out because he doesn't want to pass alone, and at the depths of his despair he remembers Setsu's promise to always protect him as he goes into sleep mode. Setsu sits by his friend's side until he awakens from his nap. He confesses that he never planned on smoking Toma, but he just wanted to make Glutton eat the curse that was cast on him to keep his promise. Toma begins crying because he almost ended the world, so Setsu advises him to atone for what he's done for the rest of his life, as our party joins them on the bridge and begins celebrating their victory. Later on, they decide to visit Toma in prison and tell him that his punishment will be to transfer all the students back to Japan, and he thanks Setsu for protecting him after all this time. He creates a portal to send most of Setsu's classmates back to their original world, and they bid them farewell. The two friends talk on the roof and Toma says that he plans on traveling this world to do good as atonement for his attempt at genocide. Then they wish each other good luck and part ways to continue their own adventure in this world. Setsu begins to depart with his party, begging to go with him, but he declines until Yuhi steps up to join him in his journey. The two heads off into this world to meet up with the best girl once again, but a giant octopus comes up and they begin to fight against each other. Meanwhile, Alice sits in her sickbed as our new party meets up with Deses, who's been repairing her castle, and shows them that Ruri remained to operate a fried octopus stall that makes her a lot of money. They travel to the Beast Continent next, but the guards refuse to let them through until all three of the furries gently embraces our hero. Roa tells him that they're the new commanders of the army and have been training very hard to become stronger. The duo ends their journey in a flower field as they walk to explore unknown territories in this peaceful world that has been cured of wars.
Like for a cat girl, subscribe for a waifu, and remember to stay swifty.